This. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, Mali's Colonel Assimi Goïta, and Niger's General Abdourahamane Tiani walk into a room and decide to form a club, the Sahel Confederation. But here's the punchline. Ghana and Ivory Coast didn't get the invite. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, not another African alliance, let's dig deeper. This isn't just about who gets to sit at the table, it's about sovereignty, hidden agendas, and whether Africa's leaders are truly following their wishes or just following the West's rulebook. Let's get started. In July 2024, the military regimes of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger decided to make it official by signing a treaty to form the Sahel Confederation. This move was seen as a clear break from the economic community of West African states ECOWAS, signaling a desire to chart their course. But here's where it gets interesting. Ghana and Ivory Coast, two of West Africa's most stable democracies, were left out in the cold. Was this a snub to nations perceived as too cozy with Western powers? Or perhaps a strategic move to distance the Confederation from any Western influence? After all, the exclusion of these countries raises eyebrows about the true intentions behind this alliance. So what is the Sahel Confederation? Picture this: Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the underdogs of global geopolitics, shaking off the weight of centuries of exploitation and boldly declaring, "No more." That's the Sahel Confederation. But don't mistake this for just another regional bloc with a fancy name. This is a political earthquake in the making, a call for African sovereignty unlike anything we've seen before. At its heart, the Sahel Confederation is an audacious bid to rewrite Africa's story. Forged by nations battered by insurgency, armed conflict, and decades of systemic economic marginalization, it's more than a political alliance. It's a movement that says, we won't just survive, we will thrive. The Confederation isn't built on the bureaucratic blueprints of Western institutions or the hollow promises of international summits. Instead, it draws strength from shared cultural, economic, and historical ties. Think of it as a family reunion, but one with a mission to dismantle the lasting legacy of colonialism and neo-colonial interference. Under the visionary leadership of Ibrahim Traoré, the Sahel Confederation emphasizes governance rooted in grassroots traditions. It challenges the Eurocentric systems imposed during colonization and still perpetuated through international organizations like the IMF and World Bank. Traoré's vision is clear. Africa must stop playing by rules it never wrote. The Confederation seeks to foster governance that resonates with local values, ensuring decisions reflect the needs of its people rather than the interests of distant global powers. The Confederation's founding members, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, share more than just borders. These nations have endured relentless insurgency, armed insurgencies, and economic disenfranchisement. Global powers have long viewed the Sahel region as a chessboard, its resources ripe for exploitation, its people mere pawns. By uniting, these nations aim to flip the script. They're rejecting the global narrative that frames them as weak and unstable. Instead, they're positioning themselves as a collective force, capable of tackling shared challenges on their terms. This isn't just about regional security, it's about economic liberation. By pooling resources, expertise, and strategies, the Confederation envisions a future where its members are no longer shackled by exploitative trade deals or foreign economic domination. The Sahel Confederation doesn't aspire to copy-paste Western governance models. It's carving out a unique path, a sustainable and sovereign union that prioritizes local solutions to local problems. From community-driven development projects to economic policies tailored for resilience against external shocks, the Confederation aims to break free from the cycles of dependency that have plagued the region for decades. Its focus on sustainability isn't just rhetoric. The bloc plans to invest in renewable energy, localized industries, and food security initiatives, ensuring its people aren't held hostage by volatile global markets. In doing so, it's creating a blueprint for other African nations to follow, a roadmap to economic self-determination. The Sahel Confederation is more than a treaty. It's a declaration of intent. Intent to challenge the status quo, intent to redefine what it means to be African in a world that still clings to colonial hierarchies, intent to reclaim sovereignty in every sense of the word, political, economic, and cultural. Yet the journey won't be easy. Critics argue that the Confederation's vision is ambitious, even utopian. The challenges, both internal and external, are immense. But if history has taught us anything, it's that revolutions begin with bold ideas. And the Sahel Confederation might just be the spark that ignites a continent-wide movement for true independence. So, as the world watches this alliance evolve, one question remains. Can the Sahel Confederation succeed where so many have faltered, or will it become another chapter in Africa's long struggle for sovereignty? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the Confederation has already made its mark as a symbol of Africa's enduring fight for freedom. But with such a focus on improving Africa and unity, why were the two nations excluded? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. At first glance, excluding Ghana and Ivory Coast from the Sahel Confederation might seem like a curious decision. These two countries are not only geographically close to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, but are also economically significant players in West Africa. So why leave them out? The answer lies in a complex web of history, ideology, and trust, or the lack thereof. This exclusion wasn't about drawing borders on a map. It was a calculated decision rooted in the Confederation's broader vision. Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, alongside Mali and Niger's leaders, is crafting an alliance defined by sovereignty, anti-colonialism, and resistance to foreign interference. In this context, Ghana and Ivory Coast represent more than geographic neighbors. They symbolize conflicting ideologies and potentially dangerous alliances. Ivory Coast's colonial legacy is hard to ignore. As a former French colony, it remains deeply enmeshed in France's sphere of influence. From its continued reliance on the CFA franc, a currency controlled by France, to its enduring political ties with Paris, Ivory Coast stands as a stark contrast to the anti-colonial ethos of the Sahel Confederation. The Confederation's vision of breaking free from neo-colonial shackles clashes directly with Ivory Coast's reality. France's influence in Ivorian affairs isn't just historical, it's ongoing. Paris continues to wield significant economic and political power, making Ivory Coast's inclusion in the bloc incompatible with the Confederation's push for true African independence. But Ghana's exclusion is perhaps more surprising. Known for its relative political stability and economic strength, Ghana could seem like a valuable ally. But under its current leadership, Ghana has increasingly aligned itself with Western powers, particularly France. While not a former French colony, Ghana's growing cooperation with Francophone nations and pro-French policies has raised eyebrows. This alignment poses a direct threat to the Confederation's mission. Traoré and his allies are laser-focused on dismantling Western control and influence over African affairs. Ghana's Western-leaning stance makes it a potential liability, undermining the bloc's ideological purity and strategic objectives. Trust is the real crux of the matter. Traoré and his counterparts have openly accused France of destabilizing Burkina Faso through covert operations and proxy forces. Allegations have even surfaced that Ghana and Ivory Coast may have played roles, willingly or otherwise, in these efforts to undermine Burkina Faso's sovereignty. These suspicions aren't baseless paranoia. France has a documented history of meddling in African politics to protect its interests, and leaders like Traoré are determined to prevent history from repeating itself.
How important is it for us to improve the quality of our emotional and mental health in all relationships?
For the Sahel Confederation, bringing in nations perceived as compromised would be akin to inviting the fox into the henhouse. Traoré's stance is clear. The Confederation must remain ideologically pure and committed to its vision of sovereignty and self-determination. Including nations with deep Western ties risks diluting that vision and opening the door to internal discord. For Traoré, the price of unity is too high if it comes at the expense of the bloc's foundational principles. This decision underscores a broader question facing Africa today. Can the continent unite while grappling with vastly different colonial legacies and levels of foreign influence? The Sahel Confederation's exclusion of Ghana and Ivory Coast suggests that unity isn't always about inclusivity. It's about shared values and trust. By excluding Ghana and Ivory Coast, the Sahel Confederation is making a bold gamble. On one hand, it ensures that the bloc remains ideologically aligned and free from immediate Western influence. On the other, it risks alienating two of West Africa's most influential nations and deepening regional divides. Whether this gamble pays off remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The Sahel Confederation is drawing a line in the sand. It's not just forming an alliance, it's making a statement. And that statement is this: sovereignty and independence come first, even if it means making tough choices about who gets to join the table. So, with this decision, what do we know about the Sahel Confederation? Imagine a heartbeat echoing across the Sahel, a pulse that signifies resistance, resilience, and rebirth. At its core, the Sahel Confederation isn't just a geopolitical bloc, it's a defiant declaration against the chains of neocolonialism. For decades, African nations have struggled with the shadow of colonial exploitation, but this confederation signals a tectonic shift. This isn't just policy, it's a movement to reclaim Africa's soul. The Confederation's rejection of Western-imposed constitutions is one of its most symbolic yet transformative steps. These constitutions, often remnants of colonial rule, were never designed to serve African interests. Instead, they acted as legal frameworks that prioritized foreign economic exploitation and political control, leaving African nations bound to a system that seldom reflected their own values or aspirations. Traoré's vision turns this dynamic on its head. By embracing grassroots governance, the Confederation prioritizes systems that resonate with African traditions, empowering local communities. This isn't just governance, it's a reclamation of cultural identity. In rejecting colonial-era constitutions, the Sahel Confederation is sending a message. Africa's future will no longer be written with a Western pen. No discussion of anti-colonialism in West Africa can ignore the role of France. For decades, Paris has been the proverbial elephant in the room, exerting influence over its former colonies through a mix of economic imperialism, military interventions, and covert political maneuvers. From controlling the CFA franc to propping up regimes that align with its interests, France's actions have often undermined African sovereignty. The Sahel Confederation addresses this head-on. Cutting ties with France's systems is not just symbolic, it's existential. For nations like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, France's influence has been synonymous with economic exploitation and political destabilization. By rejecting these systems, the Confederation is signaling its intent to dismantle the infrastructure of neocolonial control and build a foundation for true independence. Economic exploitation is one of the most enduring legacies of colonial rule. France's control of the CFA franc, a currency used by several West African nations and tightly linked to the euro, has long been criticized as a tool of economic dominance. This currency arrangement gives France significant control over the monetary policies of its former colonies, stifling their economic sovereignty. The Sahel Confederation's stance on economic independence is clear. Africa must break free from the cycle of dependency. By exploring alternative monetary systems and prioritizing local economies, the bloc aims to reclaim control over its financial destiny. This isn't just about economics, it's about liberation. Critics may dismiss the Sahel Confederation's anti-colonial stance as aspirational or overly idealistic, but the Confederation is already taking tangible steps to realize its vision. From rejecting colonial-era constitutions to exploring new economic frameworks, Traoré and his allies are proving that this is more than rhetoric. It's action. The Confederation's emphasis on grassroots governance reflects its commitment to authenticity. By empowering local communities and embracing traditional systems, it is building a model of governance that is uniquely African. This approach not only challenges the legacy of colonialism, but also provides a blueprint for other nations seeking to reclaim their sovereignty. For the Sahel Confederation, rejecting neo-colonial systems is not just an ideological stance, it's a necessity for survival. The region's history of destabilization, often linked to external interference, has made it clear that true independence requires more than just political autonomy. It demands economic self-reliance, cultural pride, and a governance system that prioritizes the people over foreign interests. As the Confederation moves forward, it faces immense challenges. But in its defiance, it offers hope, not just for its member states, but for the entire African continent. The anti-colonial heartbeat of the Sahel Confederation is more than a symbol. It's a call to action, a demand for justice, and a promise of a future where Africa's destiny is determined by Africans. The Sahel Confederation is more than a political bloc. It's a movement that could redefine what it means to be truly independent in the 21st century. In rejecting neo-colonialism, it is lighting a path for others to follow. And while the road ahead is fraught with obstacles, the Confederation's heartbeat grows louder with each step, reminding the world that Africa's fight for freedom is far from over. Now let's flip the coin. Critics claim that Ibrahim Traoré is being overly selective, handpicking allies to consolidate power within the Sahel Confederation. Some even go so far as to accuse him of wanting to dominate the bloc rather than promote unity. But these claims miss the mark. While Ghana and Ivory Coast were excluded for valid ideological and strategic reasons, the potential inclusion of Chad reveals the Confederation's commitment to solidarity and shared values, not personal power. Chad's potential membership directly counters the narrative that Traoré is being too picky. It highlights a deliberate strategy to align with nations that share the Confederation's cultural, economic, and political goals. Chad faces the same struggles that bind Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger: insurgency, armed conflict, and the enduring legacy of colonial exploitation. Including Chad,
Why are women everywhere choosing Abby X, the new tummy tuck alternative?
I got the tummy tuck results without the
strengthens the Confederation's unity and reinforces its message. This is not about individual ambition, but about collective resilience. Chad's geographic location, military experience, and natural resources make it a valuable addition to the bloc. Its inclusion would bolster the Confederation's defense strategy, enabling the member states to combat regional threats more effectively. Shared resources and coordinated efforts could turn the Sahel Confederation into a security powerhouse, capable of addressing insurgencies without reliance on external powers. Moreover, Chad's membership sends a clear message to critics. The Confederation isn't rejecting collaboration, it's rejecting external control. By focusing on nations that align with its anti-colonial and self-reliant philosophy, the bloc is building a foundation of trust and shared purpose, not division. The Sahel Confederation's security approach is revolutionary in its simplicity. Solutions must come from within. This stands in stark contrast to the reliance on foreign military interventions that have failed to bring stability to the region. Burkina Faso's enlistment of over 100,000 civilian volunteers showcases this grassroots philosophy. These individuals are more than just soldiers. They are community protectors, reflecting the Confederation's belief that security is not a top-down mandate, but a communal effort. This approach is complemented by cross-border collaborations, where intelligence, resources, and strategies are shared to address threats collectively. Chad's inclusion would amplify these efforts, providing additional manpower, resources, and strategic depth. Together, the Confederation's members are crafting a model of security that prioritizes local solutions and regional cooperation over foreign intervention. So, the exclusion of Ghana and Ivory Coast is not about isolation. It's about safeguarding the Confederation's mission. Both nations' strong ties to Western powers present a risk of internal divisions and external manipulation. By maintaining a bloc free from such influences, the Confederation ensures that its actions remain focused on African interests, not Western agendas. The Sahel Confederation isn't just a political alliance, it's a manifesto for African independence. By rejecting the legacy of colonialism and prioritizing shared values, cultural alignment, and economic self-reliance, the bloc is setting a precedent for how African nations can reclaim their sovereignty. The exclusion of Ghana and Ivory Coast underscores a key ideological divide in West Africa. Some nations prioritize historical ties to Western powers, while others seek true independence. The Confederation's choice to align with Chad demonstrates that it values unity based on shared purpose over superficial inclusivity. This is not about exclusion, it's about building a coalition that can truly stand on its own. As the Sahel Confederation grows, its success or failure will hold lessons for the entire continent. Can it inspire a broader movement against neo-colonialism? Will other African nations follow its example and prioritize Pan-African unity over Western ties? These questions are not just academic, they hold the key to Africa's future. Traoré's actions may be controversial, but they are undeniably bold. By prioritizing ideological alignment and grassroots solutions, the Sahel Confederation is laying the groundwork for a new era of African collaboration. Whether critics agree or not, the Confederation is sending a clear message. Africa's destiny will be decided by Africans, not dictated by external powers. Do you think the nations that serve Western interests must be allowed to join? What's wrong with banning them? Let us know in the comment section. Why African sovereignty must be compromised just to make a few leaders happy. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.